In this lesson, we're going to take a quick look at importing and exporting records in Visual FoxPro. So what we're going to do first off is to create another table. Let me use my table 1. Oh, sorry. I need to set the path first. Set default to C tutorial lesson 1. Use my table 1, browse. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this example is to demonstrate importing records from one Visual FoxPro table to another. And what I'm going to do is to simply create another table from this table structure using the copy command. I'll say copy structure to, and I just simply specify a new file name, and I'll have a new table with the structure but no data. So we'll call this my new table, table 1. Okay, I'll use my new table 1, browse it, and notice it's the exact same structure, but no data is in the table, which is fine. Now, one of the cool things about Visual FoxPro when importing from one table to another is that Visual FoxPro actually examines the name of each column when it's importing, irregardless of the order in which the columns are in either table. So what I'm going to do for this example is to rearrange the order of the columns in my new table 1 and see what Visual FoxPro does when I copy the data from the original my table 1. So to do that, I'll make sure that I use this exclusively. So I'll go back up here, type exclusive, modify structure, and I'm going to switch last name and first name around. So I'll just drag this down here. So it's now last name first, and I'm going to move likes coffee above date of birth. Okay, so simple changes, and then click OK. Yes to make the changes permanent. Browse again, and now the new order is last name first, and then my coffee. Oh, come on. Is at the date of birth is at the end. I'll open my data session window. I'm going to let's actually do it here. Open my table 1, and notice this. I'm saying in 0, and this simply means open my table 1 in the next available work area. I can have multiple tables open at the same time. So now my data session window shows me that my new table 1 is in what is called work area 1. There's 0 records in the table, and then my table 1 here is in work area 2. Though I did not specify 2 here, I could have done that, but 0 allows FoxPro to go ahead, search the list, and see which is the next available one, which happens to be 2, and it selected 2, open the table for me, and here it reports that there are 6 records in this table. I'll go ahead and browse it, and I see the data. I just want to do a comparison, so you can see that in my new table 1, I have last name first. So they're like that, first name is like that, and of course date of birth and likes coffee are also reversed. So I'll close this. Now when we append, I'll close my table 1. Appending records from or importing records from an existing table doesn't require the table to be open. FoxPro automatically handles that. If it's open, that's okay. If it's not open, that's also fine. To add the records, we use the append command, and you would have seen this in our earlier lesson, adding records manually. But it's the same command we use to add records from another table or from another data source. So we say append, and we use from, and if I know the name of a table, I could just simply type it here. I'm going to use a little help and put question sign. I don't specify the type, and then FoxPro will automatically know that I want a database type, DBF type, when I don't specify a different file type. So I append from, and then it lists all the tables that are available, and then I'll select my table 1 as a source, click on OK, and here it says 6 records added. And when I click on the browse window, it should be refreshed. Now, this was what I was pointing out to you, that even though the structure of the tables are not in sync in terms of they're not in the same order. In my original table, my table 1, first name is the first column, last name is or L name is the second column, and so forth. Nevertheless, when I append from a table, Visual FoxPro automatically looks to see if there are any similarities in the names of the column, and if there are, it says, okay, you should go here and you should go over here. And that is such a neat feature. And so you never have to worry about the structure. As long as the column names are the same, then you just go straight ahead and append from one table. So if you have data in one format and you want it ordered another way, of course you could always modify the table, or you could create a new table and of course append from it. So that's appending from a table. I'm going to zap this again and show you. Let's zap this table. You want to be careful when using this command. Of course, you cannot get the data back once you zap a table, and I must be using the table exclusively, so which I am. It says so in the status bar. So I'll go zap. Are you sure? Yes. So the table is now empty. What I want to do is to put a condition on the append. I want to say append from my table 1. I'll specify the table name in this example, and I'll say for the following reasons, or condition for f name equal James. Say the first name of the data that I'm appending to the table is equal to James, then I want that record. Otherwise, skip it. And here it tells me 2 records were added. So not only does the order of the columns doesn't matter, but I can now stipulate which records I want in my new table. So I don't have to blindly take everything over. I can specify a condition that will determine which records come over in my new table. So that's pretty cool. What I want to do next is to import data from another source, and I've taken the liberty of creating some data sources. Here I have an Excel file, I have a CSV file, I have a delimited text file, 2 flat files here. Actually, they're all flat files, but one is text and one is Excel format. So this is the delimited file. It's delimited with quotes, and it's the same data that we were working with before. So we're going to append this, or we're going to import this. Sample data 1, same data, there are no quotes. This is actually a fixed length file. This one, however, and when appending from other sources that are not DBF, the order of the columns matter. So here I have James, and you notice that this column is the first name column, this is the last name column, so I'll need to go back and change the structure of the table. Let's open the Excel files, and so I have this one again, fname. So when importing when importing from other data sources other than a native FoxPro table, the order of the columns are significant and must be taken into account by you, the database programmer. Let's open the CSV file, which is itself just a text file, but Excel seemed to take ownership of it, so that's fine. Okay, and it's the same bit of data, so we're going to have some duplication, but just want to show you what FoxPro will do. Now, let me just get this out of the way. I'll close the CSV file here. Now, if I were given an Excel file to convert to a FoxPro file or import into FoxPro, I traditionally do one of two things. I'll probably just convert this straight to a DBF file format and then just work with native DBF to DBF. I never do straight import from Excel, and so I just want to show you that the quickest method would be to do a save as and select sample data and just simply go down and type and look for DBase. Okay, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4. FoxPro will read any one of them. I normally go with the highest version, and so we could create a sample data. I go save. Says, do you want to keep the workbook in this format? Okay, save content features are not compatible. And I say yes. Sorry. Okay, so now we have a sample data.dbf. And so let's see what happens to the column names, which are highlighted in yellow here. So I'll close this, do not save, and I'll go ahead and say open sample data, which we created from within Excel, and browse. And so the thing with Excel too is that you have to be careful that you make sure you widen the columns before you actually do your save as. In this case, we don't have a problem, but we could easily have cut off. The length could have been smaller than I actually needed. So that's one of the things you want to bear in mind when working with data from Excel going to FoxPro. Okay, so we have the information. Everything comes over pretty nicely. My date, however, was not converted to a date field. It's actually stored here as a character type. And so I would need to go in and modify the structure of this to make it a date type. This did, however, come over as a logical type. Notice that there's an underscore in there because in my original table I had, let's see, so the Excel version, I had likes space coffee. So where there's a space, Visual FoxPro or Excel rather will insert a underscore because spaces are not allowed, or not rather valid characters for a column name or field name in Visual FoxPro. Or myself, I could have gone in here and just deleted the space before doing the save as, which would have made things simpler. And as for the name, I could have widened this column to make it a little wider, and so forth. Okay. Another option too is to simply save this as a CSV file format, which is what I would do if I had a large set of records, over several 100,000 records, and I'm unable to determine the maximum length of the first name and the last name, or even the address column. I would then simply save it as a CSV, create a table in Visual FoxPro to match the format, and then with the appropriate lengths, and then of course do the import there. I will not get into that for this session. So let's close Excel for now, and let's close this sample data. Okay, so we'll close that out. So I have my new table, and so just to show you directly from within FoxPro, instead of going through all what I just explained earlier, but using the save as, you could simply do append from, and if you don't know the name of the file or you want the file select dialog to come up, you use question mark, and then of course you can say type, the type of file you want, and I'll say Excel 8. Of course I could leave out the type and just say Excel 8, press enter key, and notice that my dialog is actually an import. Notice the word changes here because the type is Excel. It lists of course the only Excel file available, which is sample data 1, and I'll go ahead and import, and it says 7 records added. I only have 6 records, so what it did of course was to import the my my column headers. So F name, L name, address, and city, state, zip came over as data, which is not exactly correct. So I would delete this record by just clicking in here from the browse window. So that is actually flagged as deleted. And so let's see. All right. If I had set deleted on, that simply states to hide deleted records. So when I click on my browse, I don't see it. The record is still physically there, but it's just hidden because I've told FoxPro to hide deleted records by using the set deleted on command. So the append from would have done that. Likewise, I could have used the import command, import from file name type. It's the same thing. Instead of append here, would have gotten the same result. So that's the Excel file directly. And notice that the okay, we got a bit of a mix-up here. Again, I'd mentioned that the column names are important because I didn't switch the column names around. James came under the last name. All the first names, rather, came under the L name field and vice versa, which is not exactly what we want. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these records. Delete from here down. So I'll say delete rest. And then I'm going to pack this table just to physically remove those deleted records. So now I physically only have the original two. And what I'll do, I'll modify the structure to match the structure of the data that we have, which was our original structure. So I move first name back into place, and date of birth, of course, back to where it belongs. Save the structure. My data is not affected by me switching the columns around. Even if I were to change the type, FoxPro would attempt to automatically convert the type, such as if I change the date of birth to a character type, it would automatically do some conversion for me, and vice versa, which is pretty cool. So numeric would go to character, or character to numeric. If the conversion is possible, Visual FoxPro will attempt to do the conversion for me. So what we want to do now is to go ahead and append from these other types, the CSV. So I'll say append from, and I'll put the question mark here, and I'll say type CSV. Now, because I use CSV, FoxPro knows that in a CSV file, the first row is actually a header row. So whenever you use a CSV type, be sure that you have a header row, or it's going to eat one of your records. So this will correctly import my CSV file, sample data 1, ignoring the header record for me. So it says 6 records added, and so we have information as expected coming over into the table. Next we have the delimited type, and to append this one, let's close the file. Of course, this one we just simply say type delimited, and of course it will show any file having a txt extension. I happen to know that the sample data 1 is a delimited one. This is a fixed length file and would not work if I were to use the delimited on it. You can experiment with that on your own. I'll simply go sample data 1 here, and again we see that the data comes in as expected. And then the final example is the flat file, the fixed length file. And to import that, we use type system data format, which is SDF, for fixed length. Okay, and we select the fixed length file, select OK, and FoxPro imports it. These files, the delimited file and the SDF file, does not regard table headers. Actually, doesn't expect any row headers, rather. And if a row header was in there, it would actually import it. So if I were to treat my CSV file that I imported from earlier as a delimited file, which it is, it's simply a delimited file, comma separated variable file with a row header. I could use the delimited on it. However, I would end up with the row also imported into my into the table as data, which is not exactly what I wanted. So let's see. So using a CSV file using the delimited clause brings in the row header. When I use a CSV clause, it knows to skip the row header. Okay, and then one more thing I want to show you is something from the menus, and this is probably one of the rare times in which I go to the menus. We could use the import command here. Say import, and then we can specify from what file. Usually I just go to the wizard, and then I'll select my file type, which is Excel. So we're going to import the original Excel instead of using the Excel save as command. I'll select sample data, and I'll say create a new table, and it's asking me the name of the table, and this is let's call this my new table 2. And I'll save it there. Then I go next. It says create new table. It's a free table, and that's right. I want to do that. I go next, and now it's giving me a preview of all my data. And so I can tell it, given that I know that this row here actually is represents row headers and it's not actual data, I will tell it that field names begin in row 1, which this is what this is, row 1, so that's right. And I'll say begin import rather at row 2. So it should start from here, and notice now that it grays out row 1. So importation of data will begin here, which is exactly what we want. So we go next here, and of course now I can change the field names. If I so desired, I can change the types, and I can even change the length. And for this one, I'd probably make it about 20. I'll click on this column, make this 20 as well. So this is probably, and I use this when I'm not sure of the field types, or I'm practically lazy and don't wish to create a table myself, and I'd rather have the wizard do it, which is not a bad idea. Okay, make that 50, make that 25, and state is 5, which could be 2, zip is 5, and date of birth, of course. See, now this is treated as a character type, and I'll tell it to make it a date type, which is automatically 8. Of course, it determines this is also character. I'll say it should be a logical type, which will be 1, and I'll change the name to match my name, which is likes coffee. Okay. One of the E's will drop off because it's a free table and can only support a maximum of 10 characters. Actually, it's telling me now, so alright, fine. I'll drop 1, go next, and code page information, blah blah blah. We can ignore all that. We go next and just finish. Okay. So, and there we have it. We have imported data from Excel, and it has arrived in exactly. It looks similar to the data that we originally had in the My Table 1. Now, just to wrap up this segment, I want to show you how I created all these data samples, which I did from my original My Table 1. To create an Excel file from this data is pretty easy. We use the copy command, and I'll simply say copy to, I'll call this export 1, which is the name of the file that we're going to create, and type is Excel version 8 or higher. Copy to, Oh, sorry, it's XL5. Okay, copy to file name type XL5. XL8 for import, XL5 for export. Remember that. Okay, so there we go. 6 records copied, and I have a new export 1 Excel file. I open up an Excel, and my data comes over, and then I can format it as I wish, which is what I did with the other one. To create fixed length file, I simply change the type to SDF. I create an export 1. I can create a delimited file by using delimited here, or just short for delim. I'll put this as export 2, because the extension for a fixed length and a delimited file is the same txt and would overwrite. So new file created, and I could create a CSV file by using CSV up here. And so all these are export examples from within Visual FoxPro. We can create Excel. This is a fixed length file, a delimited file. Notice there are no header records, and the CSV file is similar to this, except there is a header record there. And of course our CSV file with the header record. And we already looked at the Excel file. So this at the heart is simplistic or importing of records from Visual FoxPro sources, non-Visual FoxPro sources, and exporting to Visual FoxPro sources. And also too, I mean, we could quite as easily export to a another Visual FoxPro table by simply leaving out the type. Copy to export 1 would create export 1 DBF from an open table. Okay, this is telling me I don't have a table open. I must open a table before I can export one. So I'll open that table, and I now have an export 1 DBF, which would of course have the same content as my original table. So creating duplicate data or duplication of your data is quite easy in FoxPro. If you want to work with a sample set and not mess with your original copy, you just simply use the copy to. So we've looked at some new commands: copy to, append from, which are just clauses to the original append command that we saw in our initial lesson. And I didn't touch the import, but import would quite easily have worked here as well. Import from, file name, specify the type, and would be good to go. So that's it for importing and exporting.